A reading from the Good News according to John.
Glory to you, O Christ.
On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rite of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. And Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, although the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This is the good news of Jesus Christ.
Praise to you, O Christ.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, and may they not be a means of my own or another's oppression. Please be seated. Tomorrow, we celebrate the birthday of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., a day of service and remembrance. Now, I think I recall that there's something else going on tomorrow, but that's where my energy is going to go. Martin Luther King said, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. We're tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Today is the second Sunday after the Epiphany. It's a strange time, coming after all those preparations for Advent and the Christmas celebration of the wondrous birth of the Messiah, the Christ. Both of those seasons are known for a certain intensity of emotions and a busyness, both in our churches and in our homes. Now we are in somewhat quieter time. Presents are being enjoyed if they haven't been returned. Decorations are put away. Cookies and fruitcake have been consumed or added to an already overcrowded table at coffee hour. All of a sudden, it seems we're back to normal, back to our daily routines. We naturally feel a bit of a letdown now that all this excitement is over, and we still have several more dreary weeks of winter ahead of us. But Epiphany calls us to more than that, calls us to be more than that. The Epiphany season is a time for us to reflect and to contemplate what this wondrous birth, this God with us, this Emmanuel means for us, how that ongoing event redefines us, and how it calls us to a new life. If we only begin to contemplate what it means to have God among us, how our very humanity is changed by God coming into the world and touching us. If only we could begin to recognize Jesus and understand who Jesus is and what he is trying to teach us. Then, my friends, then we will be unwrapping that greatest gift we have ever been given. It's the gift of God's radically abundant love for us and the wisdom of how to share that love. In today's readings, the prophet Isaiah shows us how God's love is infused in our very being. We exist because of God's love. And Isaiah describes the ecstatic joy which is ours when we realize and understand and when we accept and share that gift. Isaiah tells us the Lord delights in you. Think of that, delights in you. Think about it. The very same God, the creator of heaven and earth, of things seen and unseen, delights in us, in you and me. We're not just accepted by God. God isn't only pleased or happy with us. God delights in us. You and I, we delight God just by being who we are. Isaiah then tells us about how our relationship with God and with each other as we are entwined together in this love. He writes, "For as a young man marries a young woman, so shall your builder." I like that word, your builder, rather than maker, creator. Builder sounds a lot much more intimate to me. As a young man marries a young woman, so shall your builder marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. Think about that. God is now rejoicing over you. Right here, right now, today, just as you are. Such love, such an abundance of love, it's almost unthinkable. In John's Gospel, Jesus gives us an example of this abundant love in his first act of ministry, his very first act of ministry. We're presented with a very human Jesus who seems almost reluctant to help out when asked by his mother to do so. He responds, "What concern is that to you and me?" How many times have we said those very same words when we are asked to help? Refugees from around the world, Christians and others trying to survive in Palestine, people of color enduring racism and poverty in big cities around the world, the marginalized and addicted people in Boston and, yes, in Acton. What does this have to do with you and me? But then Jesus does the work. He does perform the miracle. He turns 120 to 180 gallons of water into the finest wine. And is the wine for him, for his mother, for his followers? Does Jesus go off and calculate how much money he can make from all this wine? No. This miraculously fine wine is for everyone to enjoy. Everyone. Jesus performs this miracle to allow the celebration to continue. He supplies what's needed, what's lacking, and what's in short supply. And he supplies it in abundance. The wine is freely shared with everyone in the community, satisfying the needs of that community and assuring the community continues to celebrate together in joy. This is why Jesus came among us, to show us God's abundant love and how we are to share it. Another quote from Martin Luther King, he tells us, "Love is the only cement that can hold this broken community together. When I am commanded to love, I am commanded to restore community, to resist injustice, and to meet the needs of my brothers. St. Paul teaches us that within God's abundant love is God's abundant justice. We read that your justice is like the greatest deep. Your people take refuge under the shadow of your wings. They feast upon the abundance of your house. An abundance of love and an abundance of justice. So why, after all these years, why do we see these refugees? Why do we see people living in poverty and terror? Why do we see people held captive by homelessness and addiction? Why does it seem that we're choosing a government based on fear rather than hope? Why are people so afraid they feel the need to carry a gun just to feel safe? Where is this great abundance of love and justice? My friends, I tell you, it's real and it's here, but we just don't believe it. Franciscan priest and writer on spirituality, Father Richard Rohr writes, we're already in the presence of God, already in the presence of God. What's absent is our awareness. My friends, we have so bought into the world's message of scarcity, of fear, of the need for security, whatever that may be, that it's almost impossible for us to accept God's gifts. We have been programmed to believe that if we help others, we're only going to make ourselves poor. We are taught to mistrust the other. The refugees, well, they're only coming over here to take our jobs and to destroy us. The poor, they only want more money so they don't have to work. And the homeless, they only want money for drugs and alcohol. And so it goes. Fear makes it easy to manipulate and control and separate people. Fear keeps us from knowing each other, from listening to each other, and from sharing with each other. We must actively, intentionally work to change that programming, to reject the world's messages of fear for the dark shadows that they are, and to begin to live with and for each other in the abundant light of God's love. We need to open our eyes to see beyond ourselves and open our hearts to be with others, even if it's only one other. We cannot appreciate God's love if we keep it to ourselves. We cannot live in God's justice unless we actively work to share that with others. My friends, about a year or so ago, during our search for a new bishop, clergy and lay people from across the diocese met for a discussion to put together their thoughts and their expectations for the diocese, what was important to them, and how they would like to see their parishes involved with that work. I was impressed by how many of our younger clergy and parishioners wanted to share their gifts and work with other parishes and even other denominations and people of faith backgrounds, people of different faith backgrounds, on issues of interfaith and intercultural relations and issues of justice within their own communities. They were looking to the diocese for information, guidance, and support to more efficiently and effectively share God's love and share God's justice. Does that sound familiar? It should. Our very own Church of the Good Shepherd is already at work on many of these issues, and working for justice in our community is already part of our mission statement. We have partnered with local refugee groups. We continue to develop relationships with Christian churches and others in El Salvador, and to enhance our commitment to the Creation Care ministry through training, consulting, and partnering with the diocese. We are always looking for ways to better share God's love with marginalized communities within our diocese and right here in Acton. And over announcements, you will hear of other opportunities locally that you can get involved with. The good news is that it can and it will be done, and that we already have all we need to do it. St. Paul tells us that we've been given separate individual gifts to share. And by combining our gifts, by joining together with each other, we can begin to undo the evils that have been worked into our social systems. We all have something to contribute. As Dr. King reminds us, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. My friends, open your heart to accept God's grace. Allow your soul to be powered by God's love. Add your gifts to those of others in this parish as together we do the work we have been given. Together we can live in the abundance that is God. Now is the time. This is the place, and we are the people. Let's do this work together. Amen.